The rain hammered the roof like it was trying to drown out the secrets we'd all buried for years. I jolted awake to the sound of shattering glass. Not in my dream, but real, echoing from downstairs like a gunshot in the dead of night. My heart slammed against my ribs as I stumbled out of bed, barefoot on the cold hardwood, only to freeze at the top of the stairs. Dad, silhouetted against the flickering kitchen light, his back to me, whispering into a phone. I can't hide anymore, Xavier. Not from him. Not from any of them. I don't know why I didn't charge down there right then, why I didn't scream or demand answers. Maybe it was the way his voice cracked, like a man who'd been holding his breath underwater for decades. Or maybe it was the fear, sharp and metallic in my throat, that whatever came next would shatter the fragile mosaic of our family, the one we'd pieced together after Mom left us for a fresh start in California, chasing sunsets and second chances. That night in our creaky old house in Rochester, New York, with the autumn wind rattling the maple trees outside, I stood there in my boxers and faded Metallica tee, invisible in the shadows, listening as my dad's stoic, hardworking Tom Harlan, the guy who fixed transmissions at the auto shop and grilled burgers like they were love letters, finally let the truth bleed out. He hung up the phone with a sigh that seemed to echo through the walls, and I slipped back to my room before he could turn. Sleep didn't come after that. It was more like a surrender to exhaustion, my mind spinning wild theories. Was it an affair? Money troubles? Some terminal diagnosis he'd been shielding us from? By morning, the house felt heavier, like it was holding its breath too. I dragged myself to the community college campus, where I was muddling through an associate's in graphic design, my sketchbook clutched under my arm like a shield. Rochester in late October is a watercolor of rust and gold, the Genesee River snaking through downtown like a vein of forgotten industry, and I tried to lose myself in the crisp air, the chatter of students hustling to classes. That's when I bumped into Leo, literally. My coffee sloshed over the lid of his thermos as we collided on the quad, both of us late for whatever half-hearted obligation had dragged us out. "Shit, sorry," I muttered, scrambling to mop it up with my sleeve. He laughed, that easy, rumbling sound that always made my stomach flip, like I just crested the hill on a roller coaster I wasn't sure I wanted to ride. "No harm, no foul, Harlan," he said, his dark eyes crinkling at the corners. Leo Ramirez, tall, with that effortless swagger from years on the soccer pitch. His black hair perpetually tousled like he'd just rolled out of bed after a night of rebellion. We'd been friends since freshman year of high school, bonded over shitty cafeteria pizza and a shared hatred for Mr. Hargrove's algebra drills. But lately it felt different, charged, like the air before a thunderstorm. He fell into step beside me, our shoulders brushing in that accidental on-purpose way. "You look like hell. Rough night." I shrugged, forcing a grin. "Just the usual family drama. Dad's been off." Leo's brow furrowed, but he didn't push. That's what I loved about him. He knew when to let silence do the talking. We ducked into the student union, grabbing bagels from the overpriced cart, and settled at our usual table by the window overlooking the quad. As we tore into the carbs, I sketched absent-mindedly, jagged lines that morphed into a fractured mirror, reflecting pieces of a face I couldn't quite place. "You ever feel like your life's a comic strip you didn't draw?" I asked, not really expecting an answer. Leo leaned back, crossing his arms over his broad chest. "All the time. Like, my folks back in the Bronx think I'm here studying business to take over the family bodega someday. Truth? I want to write stories that gut punch you, make you question everything." His voice dropped, intimate. "What about you, Alex? What's eating at you?" I hesitated, the echo of Dad's whisper clawing at my chest. "Xavier." Who the hell was Xavier? But spilling it felt like tempting fate. Instead, I pivoted, just wondering if families are worth the hassle. Mine's like a Jenga tower. One wrong pull, and boom. He reached across, his fingers brushing mine, just a second too long. "Worth it if there's love underneath the bullshit. Hey, there's this indie film fest downtown tonight. Experimental shorts, nothing mainstream. Come with? Might clear your head." My pulse quickened. Going out with Leo wasn't new, but it felt like stepping onto thin ice, hoping it wouldn't crack. Yeah, okay. The rest of the day blurred. Lectures on color theory that I barely absorbed, a shift at the campus bookstore shelving dog-eared copies of Kerouac and Fitzgerald, dreaming of roads not taken. By evening, the city hummed with that electric Rochester vibe, neon signs flickering over brick facades, the distant wail of a train from the old Lehigh Valley line. Leo picked me up in his beat-up Honda Civic, the dashboard littered with mixtapes and crumpled Subway wrappers. We drove with the windows down, wind whipping our hair, blasting the Nationals' Fake Empire, until the lyrics felt like a prophecy. The theater was a hole in the wall on East Main, velvet curtains frayed at the edges, seats that sagged like old men. The shorts were raw, one about a queer kid in the Bible Belt grappling with faith and first love, another on the ache of diaspora. Leo's hand found mine in the dark during the third film, a silent montage of two men dancing in a rain-soaked alley, their shadows merging under street lamps. Neither of us pulled away. When the lights came up, the air between us crackled, unspoken words hanging like fog. Outside, under a canopy of stars smudged by city glow, he turned to me. "Alex, My phone buzzed, shattering the moment. "Dad, where are you? Come home. Now." The drive back was tense, Leo's questions met with clipped answers. Our house loomed at the end of Maplewood Avenue, porch light blazing like a beacon of bad news. Dad was in the living room, pacing in front of the fireplace, his flannel untucked, eyes red-rimmed. My little sister, Mia, 16 and all sharp edges, huddled on the couch, knees to chest, glaring daggers. "What's going on?" I demanded, dropping my keys on the side table. Dad stopped, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. "Sit down, son. We need to talk." Leo hovered in the doorway, but I waved him off gently. "Go. I'll call you." He nodded, reluctance etched in his jaw, and slipped away into the night. What followed was a gut-wrenching unraveling. Dad sat us down, voice steady but frayed at the edges, and laid it bare. 30 years of marriage to Mom, a life built on compromises and quiet despairs. He'd loved her, in his way, but the truth had always simmered beneath. A love for men he'd buried under grease-stained overalls and Little League coaching. And now that truth had a name: Xavier. Xavier Ellis, the quiet artist who'd opened a gallery in the Finger Lakes 2 years back. They'd met at a county fair, bonding over craft beers and Van Gogh prints. What started as friendship had bloomed into something deeper, undeniable. Dad had fought it. God, how he'd fought. But the phone call last night, that was the dam breaking. "You're leaving." Mia's voice was a whip crack, tears carving tracks down her freckled cheeks. "Not leaving you," Dad said, reaching for her hand. She yanked it back. "Just being honest." For the first time, I felt like I'd been sucker punched. All those years, the late nights at the shop, the way he'd zone out during family dinners staring at the salt shaker like it held the universe's secrets. It wasn't depression or burnout. It was this, him, and Xavier. "Why now?" I choked out, my throat tight. "After everything?" Dad's eyes met mine, haunted. "Because hiding it was killing me, Alex. And I see it in you, the way you look at your friend Leo, like he's the sun. I couldn't let you grow up thinking love like that was something to fear." The room spun. How did he know about Leo? About me? I'd barely admitted it to myself, let alone the world. Mia stormed upstairs, slamming her door like thunder. I sat there numb as Dad gathered his keys. "I need space to figure this out. Xavier's waiting." He drove down from Ithaca, and just like that, he was gone. The pickup's engine growled to life, taillights fading into the rain-slicked street. I was alone with the ghosts of what-ifs, the house creaking like it mourned too. Sleep evaded me that night, the kind of insomnia that claws at your insides until dawn paints the curtains bloody. I tossed in sheets that smelled like Dad's aftershave, Old Spice and motor oil, replaying his words like a scratched vinyl record. Love like that. He saw me. And in seeing, he'd cracked open the vault I'd padlocked shut since high school, when whispers in the locker room had taught me to armor up. By morning, the house was a tomb. Mia wouldn't look at me over breakfast, her cereal untouched, spoon clinking against the bowl like Morse code for fury. "He's a liar," she spat finally, shoving her chair back. "Mom left because of this, didn't she?" He drove her away. I wanted to argue, to say love doesn't work like that, clean cuts and blame, but the words stuck. Mom's goodbye letter from 8 years ago echoed in my head. I need to breathe, Tom. We both do. We chalked it up to her artist soul craving more than upstate winters. Now, felt like collateral damage. I don't know, Mia, I said softly, reaching for her. She flinched away, grabbing her backpack and bolting for the school bus. The door slammed, and I was left with the hum of the fridge and a gnawing void. Class was a haze. I doodled fractured hearts in my notebook, lines bleeding into each other until they formed Xavier's name, scrawled like a curse. Who was this guy who'd upended our world? A homewrecker in corduroy? Or just a man who'd offered Dad the oxygen he'd been denying himself? Leo texted midway through my digital imaging seminar. You okay? That exit last night looked heavy. I stared at the screen, thumbs hovering. Family imploded. Dad's gay. Leaving for some dude. Hit send before I could overthink it. His reply was instant. Holy shit. Meet after? Park by the river. Bring your sketchpad. The Genesee was swollen from the rains. Chocolate brown waters churning under the Frederick Douglass Bridge. Gulls wheeling overhead like scavengers. Leo was there on our bench, the one etched with initials from kids who'd loved and lost before we even knew what that meant. He stood when he saw me, pulling me into a hug that smelled like cedar and possibility. Fierce, unyielding. Talk to me, he murmured, arm lingering around my shoulders as we sat. So I did. The floodgates opened. The phone call I'd eavesdropped on, Dad's confession, Mia's rage, the way it all retrofitted my childhood into something surreal. He thinks he sees me in this, I finished, voice raw. Like I'm him 20 years back. But what if I'm not brave enough? Leo's hand covered mine, warm and steady. Bravery's not the absence of fear, Alex. It's showing up anyway. His thumb traced circles on my knuckles, sending sparks up my arm. And for what it's worth, I see you. Have for a while. The world narrowed to that point of contact, the river's rush fading to white noise. I leaned in, heart hammering, and our lips met. Tentative at first, then deepening with the hunger of truths long unspoken. It was messy, tasting of bagel crumbs and relief, his stubble grazing my chin like a promise. When we broke apart, foreheads pressed together, he whispered, I've wanted that since the night we snuck into that drive-in and watched Brokeback Mountain on the hood of my car. I laughed, shaky. Me too. But Dad, it's like he handed me this gift wrapped in barbed wire. We walked the path then, hands intertwined, leaves crunching underfoot like brittle memories. Leo shared his own fragments. Coming out to his abuela over Tamales last Christmas. The way she'd crossed herself before pulling him into a bone-crushing embrace. Families bend, Alex. They don't always break. But ours felt perilously close. That afternoon, I drove to Ithaca on a whim. The highway unspooling through hills ablaze with fall foliage. Xavier's gallery was tucked into a converted barn on the lake's edge, windows glowing like lanterns against the gathering dusk. I parked across the street, engine idling, watching shadows move inside. Dad's pickup was there, mud-splattered from Rochester backroads. Through the glass, I saw them. Dad, gesturing animatedly, his laugh booming, free, unburdened. And Xavier, tall, silver fox handsome in a linen shirt, glasses perched on a nose that spoke of East Coast academia. He touched Dad's arm, gentle, and something twisted in my gut. Not jealousy exactly. Betrayal? Yeah. Because while Dad had been figuring it out, we'd been the collateral, the son sketching escape routes, the daughter building walls. I killed the engine, storming across the gravel lot before reason could catch up. The door chime tinkled like a warning as I burst in. Heads turned, patrons nursing wine, an artist mid-pitch. Dad's face drained of color. Alex? What? We need to talk, I growled, ignoring the curious stares. Xavier stepped forward, hand extended. Alex Harlan? I know who you are. My voice was ice. The reason my family's in pieces. The gallery emptied like a sinking ship, leaving us in a hush broken only by the lap of Cayuga Lake outside. Dad pulled me into the back room, a cluttered studio reeking of turpentine and possibility. Son, this isn't what? Fair? Necessary? I paced, fists clenched. You dropped this bomb and bailed.
Mia SREC.
She's skipping school, blasting Taylor Swift breakup anthems at 3 a.m. And me? I'm supposed to just applaud? Because you finally get to be happy? Xavier hung back, eyes kind but weary. I never wanted to hurt anyone. Tom and I. It was slow. Organic. Organic. I spat. Like cancer. Dad flinched. Alex, please. I love you. Both of you. This isn't about replacing your mom or abandoning you. It's about living the life I was too scared to claim. The fight drained out of me then, leaving exhaustion in its wake. I slumped onto a stool, head in hands. Did Mom know? A beat. Suspected. We talked before she left. She said, "Find your truth, Tom. For all our sakes." Tears stung. Mom, the ghost in our stories, had been the architect of this freedom. I glanced at Xavier. Really looked. Not a villain, but a mirror. Reflecting Dad's quiet joy. The spark I'd glimpsed in stolen moments with Leo. "I'm sorry," I whispered, "for barging in. For everything.
Xavier nudda.
Come for dinner sometime. No pressure. Just family, new edition." Dad hugged me then, fierce and familiar. "I love you, kid. More than transmissions or tailgates." The drive home was cathartic, windows down, wind scouring the salt from my cheeks. But peace? That was fleeting. Mia was waiting, arms crossed, ultimatum in her eyes. "If he comes back, I want nothing to do with it."
Mia. No, Alex.
He chose Xavier over us. It wasn't that simple, but grief doesn't negotiate. That week blurred into a tense standoff. Me shuttling between classes and home. Leo my anchor in stolen kisses by the vending machines. Walks where we'd debate plot twists in the price of salt. He was writing again, fragments of a story about two boys in a Rust Belt town. Their love a quiet revolution. One night as snow dusted the eaves, early for Rochester, but winter doesn't wait, I found Dad's journal on the porch. He'd left it, wrapped in twine, a note taped to the cover. "While you were sleeping, I wrote this. For you. To understand." I cracked it open by lamplight, pages filled with Dad's blocky script. Entries from 95, confessing a crush on his college roommate. 05, the ache after Mom's pregnancy announcement. Last year, meeting Xavier at a harvest festival, the world tilting. It wasn't a betrayal log. It was a roadmap of restraint, love deferred. The final entry, I did it for Alex, so he knows it's okay to choose himself. Sobs racked me, cathartic. But dawn brought Mia's scream from downstairs. I'd fallen asleep with the journal open. She'd found it, pages splayed like an accusation. "You kept this from me." She hurled it at my chest. "You're on his side now?" "No, But she was gone, backpack slung, door banging shut. Leo arrived an hour later, snowflakes melting in his hair. What happened? I handed him the journal. As he read, I confessed the fear. Losing her, fracturing us beyond repair. "We'll fix it," he said, pulling me close. "Together." But fixes aren't linear. Thanksgiving loomed, a minefield of turkey and tensions. Dad called, voice hopeful. "Xavier's cooking. Room for 2 more." I glanced at Mia, sullen on the couch. Her eyes dared me. "We'll see." The holiday arrived crisp and unforgiving. Our dining table set for 3, gaps like missing teeth. Mia picked at her stuffing, silent. I filled the air with small talk. Leo's hand a secret anchor under the tablecloth. No, wait, that was later. For now, it was just us, navigating the wreckage. Then the doorbell.
Mia frose.
I opened it to Dad and Xavier, pie in hand, smiles tentative. "Can we try?" Dad asked.
Mia cer scraped.
"Try what?" "Pretending this is normal." Xavier knelt, eye level. "Normal's overrated, kid. Real's what matters. And real hurts like hell sometimes." She searched his face, then mine, then Dad's. Tear escaped. "It hurts." "Yeah," Dad said, voice breaking. "It does." We didn't hug it out that night, no Hallmark miracle. Mia retreated to her room, door ajar just enough for muffled sobs to leak through. Dad and Xavier stayed, clearing plates with quiet efficiency, their presence a gentle intrusion. Leo, who'd shown up with a 6-pack of root beer and 0 expectations, crack jokes about pilgrim fashion until the tension eased into something resembling truce. By midnight, the four of us, plus Leo, sat around the fire pit in the backyard, snowflakes hissing into steam, sharing stories like kindling. Xavier spun tales of his life in Boston, pre-Ithaca. A closeted painter navigating 80s AIDS crises, canvases splashed with grief and defiance. Art saved me, he said, gaze soft on Dad. Then Tom did. Dad chuckled, self-deprecating. I was just a grease monkey with a soft spot for sunflowers. Mia emerged halfway through, bundled in her hoodie, perching on the picnic table's edge. Did you always know? She asked Xavier, voice small. He nodded. Knew I was different by 12. Took decades to own it. She chewed her lip. Mom, does she know now? Dad's face shadowed. Called her yesterday. She's flying in next month. Wants to meet Xavier. Properly. The revelation hung, a bridge over chasms. Mia didn't speak again, but she didn't leave either. Progress in jagged increments. Winter deepened, Rochester transforming into a monochrome dreamscape. Sidewalks crunchy with salt, breaths clouding like unspoken fears. Leo and I carved out stolen normalcy. Study sessions that dissolved into make-out marathons in the library stacks. Drives to Niagara Falls where the mist veiled our whispers. I love you, he said one night, fogging the car windows, his confession a spark in the cold. Love you too, I breathed, the words foreign yet fitting, like a key turning in a long-locked door. But home was a pressure cooker. Mia's walls held firm. She'd nod at Dad's check-ins, endure Xavier's awkward attempts at dad jokes via text, but resentment simmered. School counseling helped, mandatory after her grades tanked, but it was Leo who bridged the gaps, inviting her to his pickup soccer games, where she'd cheer from the sidelines, thawing inch by inch. The real storm hit in January, a nor'easter burying us under 2 feet of white fury. Power flickered, then died, plunging the house into primal dark. Mia and I huddled under blankets, phone flashlights casting eerie glows, when Dad's truck crunched up the drive. Xavier at the wheel, chains rattling. They burst in, arms laden with groceries and a portable generator. No one's roughing it alone, Dad declared, voice brooking no argument. We ate by candlelight. Canned soup heated on a camp stove, stories unfolding like peels. Mia, emboldened by the shadows, asked Dad about his first love. A boy named Eddie from high school, lost to Vietnam. I wrote him letters I never sent, Dad admitted. Kept them in a cigar box under the workbench. Xavier shared his own scars. A partner gone too soon, the gallery born from that void. Grief teaches you to hold tighter to what's here. By dawn, as plows cleared the streets, Mia leaned her head on Dad's shoulder. I miss us, the old US. Dad kissed her hair. Old us is still here, just room for more now. It wasn't absolution, but it was a foothold. Spring crept in tentative, crocuses punching through snow, the lake thawing with a sigh. Mom arrived in April, her California tan a stark contrast to our pallor. We met at the gallery, neutral ground. Air scented with acrylics and lilacs from the window boxes. She hugged Dad first, long, fierce, then Xavier, appraising. You make him smile like I haven't seen in years, she told him. To me and Mia, your dad's always been a quiet storm. Proud of you both for riding it out. Over coffee, stories wove together. Mom's revelations about her own regrets, the affairs she'd buried in wanderlust. No villains, just humans fumbling toward light. Mia, tentative, asked, can we be a family? All of us? Mom smiled. Families aren't blood or labels. They're choices. That night, Leo and I walked the lakeshore, pebbles skittering underfoot. You did it, he said, lacing fingers with mine. Held the line. We did. I stopped, pulling him close. The water lapped gentle, stars pricking the indigo sky. While I was sleeping, Dad didn't just leave, he woke us all up. He kissed me, slow and sure. To what matters? Summer bloomed riotous. Barbecues where Xavier's ribs rival Dad's. Mia's art class field trips with Mom's old easel. Leo's story sold to a lit mag. Our Rust Belt boys, echoes of us. And we celebrated with rooftop beers, city lights sprawling like a promise. One August evening, As fireflies danced in the backyard, Dad pulled me aside. That journal? It was my way of saying sorry. And thank you. For what? Seeing me. Letting me see you. He nodded toward Leo, tossing a frisbee with Mia, laughter ringing clear. I grinned, chest full. Love like that? Worth the wake-up call. Our family wasn't perfect. Scars faded but lingered. Arguments flared like summer storms. But in the choosing, the holding on, we found something human. Forgiveness not as erasure, but as expansion. While I slept that first night, Dad hadn't shattered us. He'd cracked us open. To truths, to loves, to the messy beauty of becoming. And in the quiet hours before dawn, with Leo's arm around me and the house humming soft, I finally slept deep, knowing we'd wake to whatever came next. Together.